Time, it is the silent metronome by which we measure our lives, the unseen thread woven into every breath, every glance, every heartbeat. We speak of it as though it were as real as the ground beneath our feet, as tangible as the hands on a clock, or the calendar that hangs upon the wall. Yet if you press deeper into its nature, if you peel back the layers of assumptions that cradle our daily existence, you begin to see something unsettling. Time may not be what we think it is. In fact, it may not be real in the way we have always believed. Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean that stretches endlessly into the horizon. The waves roll in, one after another, and we assume they are carrying us forward, first this moment, then the next, then another, until we are swept further along into the future. But what if the ocean itself never moved? What if the waves were illusions of motion, tricks of perception, and the water beneath them was eternally still? This is the paradox of time. We live as if we are being carried through it, yet we might simply be gazing at ripples upon an unmoving sea. From childhood we are taught to revere time as a tyrant and a savior. We are told it heals wounds, that it destroys civilizations, that it is money, that it waits for no one. We slice it into hours and days, into weeks and years, into lifetimes that stretch like fragile bridges from birth to death. We fear its scarcity, we curse its speed, and yet we cling to the comfort that it will bring growth, change, or eventual relief. But beneath this cultural hypnosis lies a question few dare to whisper. Is time itself a lie we have all agreed to tell? Science, philosophy, and spiritual traditions all brush against this possibility from different directions. Physics tells us that past, present, and future may coexist simultaneously, that time bends and warps in the presence of gravity, and that the ticking of a clock is not the same for a man standing on the earth as it is for an astronaut circling the stars. Philosophy suggests that the present is the only reality, that the past exists only in memory and the future only in imagination. Mystics across centuries have proclaimed that eternity is not a line extending forever forward, but rather a depth that exists here, now, endlessly present in the heart of this very breath. When you begin to look at it this way, something astonishing begins to unfold. The structure of your life, the deadlines, the regrets, the worries of what will come suddenly looks less like truth and more like scaffolding built upon shifting sand. You start to realize that time is less a law and more a language, less a force of nature and more a framework of perception. It is the story we use to make sense of change, but it is not necessarily the thing itself, and if this is true, then much of what we believe about ourselves collapses with it. For who are we if not the sum of our years? What becomes of identity when it no longer has a timeline to anchor itself to? What does it mean to dream of tomorrow if tomorrow is not a destination but merely a concept, a projection painted by the mind's imagination upon the canvas of now? There is a reason this idea feels both terrifying and liberating. To confront the illusion of time is to confront mortality itself. It is to pull at the seams of the narrative that says you are born, you live, and you die, as though your existence were a straight line etched in the dust of an infinite cosmos. If that line is an illusion, then perhaps death, too, is not what we believe it to be. Perhaps beginnings and endings are tricks of perspective, and life is something far stranger, deeper, and more eternal than our clocks and calendars allow us to see. And yet, even as we entertain this thought, we cannot deny the felt weight of time. We age, we see photographs of ourselves as children, and marvel at the distance between then and now. We plan for futures that never arrive as we imagine them, and we mourn pasts that slip from our grasp, no matter how tightly we hold them. This is the paradox we inhabit. Time both rules us and deceives us, both exists and dissolves when scrutinized. So when I say everything you believe about time is a lie, I am not offering a cynical dismissal, but an invitation to peel away illusion. I am inviting you to consider that time may not be a river carrying you away, but rather a mirror reflecting infinite possibilities all at once. That the past you grieve and the future you chase are not distant lands, but dimensions folded into the eternal fabric of the present. That perhaps you have never left the now, and never will. As you step into this exploration, let yourself feel the weight of that possibility. Imagine the freedom if the prison bars of time were not made of steel, but of mist. If the regrets of yesterday and the fears of tomorrow dissolved into the simple radiance of the present, imagine the depth of living that might open before you if the story of time was revealed for what it is. Not a master, not an enemy, but an illusion crafted by consciousness itself. This journey will not be about dismantling the usefulness of time, for we still need clocks to catch trains, calendars to meet friends, and rhythms to mark the turning of the seasons. Rather, it is about piercing through the surface to see what lies beneath. It is about discovering that the true essence of existence does not flow along a line, but pulses eternally in the here and now. By the end of this exploration, you may no longer see time as you once did. You may begin to sense that what you thought was a cage is in fact a door, that what you believed was a linear path is actually a vast, infinite field. And in that realization, you may discover a new kind of freedom, one that has been waiting patiently in the silence between each tick of the clock. If the introduction opened the doorway into doubt, this section asks us to step fully inside the chamber and look around. To say that everything you believe about time is a lie is not merely poetic provocation. It is a summons to re-examine the foundations of how we perceive existence itself. For time, as we have been taught, is the skeleton upon which we drape the flesh of our lives. It is the invisible ruler by which we measure our successes, our failures, our memories, and our hopes. To question it is to question the architecture of reality. And yet, when we dare to hold this architecture up to the light, cracks appear. Time, it turns out, is not a universal truth, but a perspective, an agreement, a story, a construct. Let us then move through its central illusions, those great pillars upon which our understanding rests, and see how fragile they really are. The first illusion is that of linearity. We have been conditioned to see life as a straight line. Yesterday, behind us, today beneath us, tomorrow ahead. This story gives shape to our ambitions and regrets. It makes us mourn childhood as though it were lost, and it pushes us to chase futures as though they were waiting in some distant land. Yet science whispers a different tale. Relativity suggests that time is not aligned at all, but a pliable field, bending and stretching according to gravity and speed. To one observer, an hour may pass, while to another, years. The line begins to dissolve, and in its place we glimpse something stranger, a universe where all moments coexist, layered upon one another like pages in an infinite book, waiting to be read in countless sequences. The second illusion is that of measurement. We think of seconds, minutes, hours, as though they were solid, carved into the fabric of the cosmos itself. But they are inventions, cultural tools, carved from the movements of planets and the oscillations of atoms. The tick of the clock is not time itself, but the sound of human ingenuity, trying to trap the ungraspable. Imagine mist drifting through a forest. Our calendars and clocks are nets we cast into that mist, catching droplets and convincing ourselves we hold the whole, but the essence slips through, forever untouched. The third illusion is that of separation. We imagine that the past is gone, sealed forever, and the future is yet to be born, a realm of uncertainty beyond the reach of the present. But consciousness hints otherwise. The past lives in memory, and memory is alive now. The future exists in imagination, and imagination is alive now. In truth, everything we ever experience, regret, anticipation, nostalgia, within the present moment. The past and future are not places we visit, but perspectives we carry, shadows and projections cast by the mind's lantern upon the screen of the eternal present. Yet, perhaps the most pervasive delusion is that of control. We believe we are dragged by time's current, powerless against its pull. We say we don't have enough time, as though it were a resource doled out by some indifferent cosmic accountant. But if time is perception, then scarcity is perception, too. What if the experience of not enough time is not an objective reality, but a lens we wear, narrowing our awareness and suffocating our possibilities? When you expand that lens, you find a paradoxical truth. Eternity has always been here, contained within the now. The present is not a fleeting point, slipping away, but an infinite wellspring, from which all possibility arises. These illusions are not mistakes, they are useful fictions. Linearity helps us plan, measurement helps us coordinate, separation helps us make sense of memory and anticipation. Control, or the lack thereof, teaches us humility. But when we confuse the story with the reality, when we mistake the map for the territory, we bind ourselves to chains that were never there. We mourn the past as though it were irretrievable, forgetting it is alive within us. We dread the future as though it were a destiny, forgetting it is born from our present thoughts and choices. And here lies the core truth, hidden beneath the lie. Time is not an absolute tyrant, but a mirror of consciousness. The way you experience it depends not on the ticking of the clock, but on the state of your mind. This is why moments of joy feel timeless, why an hour spent in passion or creativity dissolves into seconds, while minutes of suffering stretch into eternities. The elasticity of time is not a defect, but a clue. It reveals that time does not govern us, it is woven by us. It is not the master of consciousness, but its servant, its canvas, its stage. Once you realize this, you begin to see how profoundly it shifts everything. If time is not linear but layered, then your life is not a fragile thread, destined to fray, but part of a vast, interconnected tapestry. If time is not measured but imagined, then freedom lies not in racing the clock, but in awakening to the present. If past and future are not separate but folded into now, then the essence of eternity is always accessible. If control is an illusion, then what you thought of as chains are actually doors, waiting to be opened by a shift in perception. And so, when we say everything you believe about time is a lie, we are not stripping away meaning, but revealing a deeper one. The lie is not malicious, it is a veil. The truth is not hidden, it is waiting. And once you touch it, even for a breath, the world changes. The rush of urgency softens. The burden of regret lifts. The fear of endings dissolves into the recognition of continuity. This is the essence of the core themes. That time is not a rigid prison, but a flexible dream. Not an external law, but an internal lens. Not a march toward death, but a stage upon which the eternal present performs endless variations. When you glimpse this, you begin to awaken, not just to a new understanding of time, but to a new understanding of yourself. To truly feel the weight of the idea that everything you believe about time is a lie, it helps to leave behind abstract concepts and enter the realm of story, symbol, and myth. For while philosophy sharpens the mind, stories awaken something older and deeper in us, the part of our being that understands through image and metaphor, that recognizes truth not only as thought but as resonance. Time has always been a subject of myth, because it has always felt like both a master and a mystery. And so, to move closer to its essence, let us wander into these symbolic landscapes. Picture a vast library. Endless corridors stretch in all directions, lined with books that contain every moment of every life, every possibility, every dream, every sorrow. To most visitors, the librarian offers only a single book, the one labeled now. You are allowed to read it page by page, never skipping ahead, never turning back, always under the illusion that the story is unfolding as you move through it. Yet in truth, the library is already complete. All endings and beginnings are there, shelved side by side. What you call the past has not disappeared, it waits patiently on its shelf. What you call the future is not uncertain, it already exists, though hidden from your current view. The belief that you are walking through a story is the lie. The deeper truth is that you are surrounded by infinite shelves of already written realities. The only mystery is which one you will turn toward. Or consider the ancient tale of a river. In countless traditions, time is likened to water flowing, unstoppable, carrying us from source to sea. We step into its current, believing we are moved forward by its force. Yet imagine if the river never truly flowed. Imagine if it were not water rushing past us, but rather us drifting through stillness, perceiving motion where none exists. Perhaps each ripple is not a new moment, but the echo of awareness skimming across an eternal pool. The illusion of movement is our own projection, a dream of passage woven into the fabric of perception. In this vision, eternity is not a stretch of endless water, is the stillness beneath the imagined waves. There is also the allegory of the circle. Imagine a group of people born inside a great wheel that slowly turns. To them, life seems like a straight road, yesterday behind, tomorrow ahead. They march along faithfully, believing they are heading toward some distant end. But from above, you can see the truth. They are walking in a circle, destined to return again and again to where they began. Birth, death, rebirth, endless cycles, masked as a line. This is the deception of time's linearity, exposed in the imagery of the eternal return. What they thought was progress was repetition. What they thought was loss was recurrence. And in realizing this, the circle becomes not a trap, but a symbol of timelessness, of existence that is neither beginning nor end, but perpetual transformation. Another symbol comes from dreams. Have you ever woken from a dream that felt like hours, only to discover mere minutes had passed? or conversely, dreamed an instant that seemed to stretch into entire days or even years. Dreams expose the fragile grip of time, revealing it as an inner construct rather than an external law. In dream time, the clock is irrelevant. The mind writes its own rhythm. What if waking life is no different? What if time in this world is also a dream we share, agreed upon for coherence, but no more absolute than the shifting timelines of sleep? Perhaps the most powerful narrative is the mirror. Imagine standing before a great mirror that reflects not only your body but every version of yourself that has ever existed and ever will. The child you once were looks back at you, alive in that reflection. The elder you will become gazes with quiet wisdom, already present. Every choice, every possibility, every path extends in those mirrored dimensions. From the limited perspective of the flesh, you see only one reflection at a time, but the mirror holds them all, simultaneously real. What we call time is simply the narrowing of vision, the focusing of infinite reflections into a single image we label now. But the mirror itself is timeless, containing all at once. These symbolic narratives are not meant to provide neat answers. They are keys, opening doors in the mind where logic cannot tread. They suggest that time is not a river but a library, not a line but a circle, not a law but a dream, not a tyrant but a mirror. Each symbol pulls us away from certainty and closer to mystery, and in that mystery, we find liberation. For if the lie of time is exposed, then so too is the lie of limitation. You are not a creature doomed to march helplessly from birth to death. You are a consciousness moving through infinite possibilities, touching one after another, but always rooted in the eternal now. The stories remind us that the fear we attach to time, the fear of loss, the fear of endings, the fear of running out is born of illusion. The child within you is not gone. The future self is not unreachable. They live here, woven into the tapestry of the present. To awaken to this is to step out of the prison of time's illusions and into the freedom of timeless awareness. It is one thing to philosophize about time as illusion, to wander through the vast holes of metaphor and story, but another to ask the practical question, how does this shift in perception alter the way we live? For if everything you believe about time as a lie remains merely an abstract curiosity, it risks becoming little more than a parlor trick of the mind. Yet when it sinks deeper, when it enters the marrow of daily life, it changes everything: how we work, how we rest, how we love, and how we die. The question then becomes not whether time is real, but how the illusion of time has been shaping us, and what happens when we see through it. To live within the illusion of linear time is to live under constant tension. You are told you are running out of time. You must achieve by a certain age. You must heal within a certain span. You must race against the ticking clock, for one day it will stop. This belief drives ambition, but it also breeds anxiety. It pushes you to fill your days not with presence but with frantic motion, as though existence were a checklist to be completed before the deadline arrives. When you recognize time as a construct, however, the pressure begins to dissolve. You see that running out of time is a story, not a law. The present expands, and in that expansion, creativity and joy have room to breathe. Think of the way we treat memory. We often believe that the past has locked us in chains, that what happened years ago still defines us today. But if the past exists only as memory, and memory is alive now, then the chains are not forged in time but in thought. To revisit a painful past is to resurrect it in the present, to keep it alive by choice or by habit. But if you awaken to the truth that the past is not a fixed place, but a living pattern within your awareness, you can transform it. You can reframe, reinterpret, and heal it here, in the eternal now. Trauma and regret lose their fatal grip when you see them not as immutable history, but as shadows cast into the present by your mind's lantern. The same is true of the future. How often do we defer life to tomorrow? We postpone joy until the right time, delay dreams until we feel ready, and sacrifice presence on the altar of some imagined destiny. Yet the future never arrives as future. It always comes as now. To understand that time is illusion is to realize that the future is not a destination waiting to be reached, but a possibility being shaped in this very moment. Every thought, every choice, every breath is the seed of what you call tomorrow. Instead of chasing the horizon, you become a gardener of the present, tending the soil from which all futures bloom. Consider also the experience of aging. Under the tyranny of time, Growing older becomes a story of losa, dwindling supply of days, a steady march toward decline. But if time is not linear, if all selves coexist within the eternal mirror, then aging is not destruction but unfolding. The child, the youth, the elder are not separate stages but simultaneous notes in the symphony of your being. To live in timeless awareness is to carry them all with you, to see your wrinkles not as the evidence of loss but as symbols of depth. You are not leaving anything behind. You are gathering more of yourself, expanding the chorus of who you are. Even in the realm of productivity, the shift is profound. Modern culture idolizes efficiency, demanding that we manage our time as though it were currency. This leads to constant stress, multitasking, and the nagging sense that we are always behind. But if time is not a limited resource but a lens, then the key is not managing it, but expanding it. You have felt this in moments of flow, when hours vanish into minutes because your awareness is so absorbed in the task that the clock loses meaning. To live more in presence is to multiply time, to stretch it like elastic, to create richness instead of scarcity. And what of mortality? This is perhaps the deepest implication. We fear death because we believe time carries us toward an ending, that the line we walk must eventually fall off a cliff into nothingness. But if time is not a line, if it is an illusion shaped by perception, then death itself may be a doorway rather than a wall. Consciousness, untethered from time, cannot be confined to beginnings or endings. The awareness reading these words has no age, no birth date. It is the same awareness that witnessed your childhood, and it will be the same awareness as long as experience continues. To awaken from the lie of time is to glimpse immortality, not as endless years, but as timeless being. These realizations do not mean we abandon the practical usefulness of clocks and calendars. We still meet appointments, honor commitments, and mark anniversaries. But we begin to use time as a tool, not worship it as a master. We recognize that behind the ticking of every clock lies the silence of eternity, that between every deadline lies infinite spaciousness, that within every fleeting moment an entire universe resides. When this awareness is integrated, life changes in subtle yet radical ways. You stop hurrying because you see there is nowhere else to be but here. You stop postponing joy because you realize tomorrow is only an idea. You stop clinging to the past because you understand it lives only in the now. You begin to live not as a prisoner of time but as its master, weaving your days not with fear of scarcity but with the abundance of presence. If you have followed this journey through doubt, through story, through reflection and practical integration, then something within you has already begun to shift. The ticking of the clock does not sound quite the same. The past does not weigh quite as heavily. The future does not seem so far away. You have brushed against the possibility that the structure you once thought immovable, the relentless forward march of time, is not a lull, but a lens, not reality, but perception, not a prison, but a dream. And this realization is not meant to remain as mere philosophy. It is meant to rewire the very way you live. For if everything you believe about time is a lie, then everything you believe about yourself within time is also called into question. You are not a fragile thread stretched between birth and death, straining toward an inevitable end. You are not the victim of a clock that never ceases its turning. You are the stillness beneath the waves, the timeless witness behind every changing season of your life. You are the awareness that has never aged, that has never been diminished, that has never been anywhere but here. Think for a moment about the deepest moments of your life. A first kiss, the birth of a child, the awe of standing before the ocean, the silence of grief when words failed. In those moments, time disappeared. You were not counting minutes, you were immersed in eternity. These moments felt real not because of their place on a timeline, but because of their intensity of presence. That is the secret the illusion of time conceals. Eternity is not endless duration, but infinite depth, accessible in every breath. To awaken to this truth is to reclaim your life. No longer must you rush, fearing you are falling behind. No longer must you mourn what is lost, believing it is gone forever. No longer must you wait for the future, postponing your joy until tomorrow. Life does not exist in tomorrow. It never has, it never will. It exists only here, where you are. Every regret, every hope, every heartbeat converges in the present, and the present is boundless. This is the transformational call, To stop living as though time is your master and begin living as though presence is your true reality. To treat each moment not as a fleeting grain of sand slipping through your fingers, but as an entire universe, full and complete in itself. To look at the clock and smile, knowing its ticking is only a story, a rhythm we created, and that behind it, eternity waits. When you release yourself from the live time, your life does not shrink, it expands. The past becomes a treasure you can revisit, reinterpret, and reshape in the now. The future becomes a canvas painted by your present choices, and the present becomes more than a stepping stone, it becomes the destination itself, radiant and alive. So pause here, feel your breath. Notice the awareness reading these words. That awareness is timeless. It is the same awareness that has always been with you, untouched by years, unchanged by clocks. In it lies freedom, peace, and eternity. In it lies the end of the lie. Everything you believe about time may be a lie, but what shines beneath that lie is truth, that you are eternal, that presence is infinite, and that life is not slipping away from you, but unfolding within you, endlessly, here, now, forever.